Welcome to the sixth episode of the NFL Hour. This is going to be a full long episode talking about the Super Bowl. We're going to talk about, we're going to recap the regular season, talk a little bit of postseason stuff and preseason next year, the stuff that we're excited about. And then we're going to talk about some of the most overrated fan bases. For those of you who don't know, this is my good friend, Sean. What's up, Sean?
What's going on, man? Long time.
Yeah, it's been a minute. So Sean and I love Sean so much because Sean is the reason why I actually have a podcast. We talk sports all the time. And then one day we were just sitting around talking sports, and he was like, why don't we start a podcast?
And I was gonna say, like adults, we just communicate through sports memes now. But we just cooked up a bunch of fried shrimp one night and got to it. Rest is history.
Yeah, man, and we started our own little YouTube show that ran for a little while. Then I started podding, and now you're working in sports production, which you were then. But tell us about what you're doing, Sean.
I work for Fanside as a video producer. Putting a lot of stuff on YouTube and on their video player on their website. Stuff from like comparing who's more clutch, Tiger Woods or Jack Nicklaus, stuff like that. And then most recent video, we went through the Trust the Process Sixers and all the crap that went down there. So just telling stories, having fun. Could be worse working in sports, you know.
That Trust the Process video was really, really dope. I thoroughly enjoyed that one.
Thank you.
So, man, let's get into the Super Bowl conversation. No need to play around. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers shocked the world. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs 31-9. And my first question for you is, was it Brady or was it Bowles?
I think we all know that. Brady played mistake-free. I think he was 3 touchdowns, 0 picks, which was important. But Todd Bowles in that cover too. Andy Reid refused to run the ball going back to his Philly days. And that front four for Tampa Bay got home. Those linebackers are all fast as hell. Devin White, I've never seen a linebacker run faster since like Patrick Willis. Levante David finally gets some credit he deserved. That whole defense. But you're right. I think it makes us bring the magnascope back to the magnifying glass back to Todd Bowles, and maybe he was yanked too fast and for the New York Jets and never get another chance. This guy's a good coach. Obviously, he can call some defensive plays too.
You know, I'm happy that Bowles put on the show that he did, and I'm also happy to hear that Leftwich and the media has actually been getting credit for the game plan, whether it was his game plan, Arians' game plan, or Tom Brady's game plan. It's good to hear the coordinators getting their due for what they've actually been doing, because throughout the season, man, I thought Tom Brady was getting far too much credit from the national media, who did not actually pay attention to Tampa Bay last year. I, as a Falcons fan, I watched the NFC South. I knew they were a 7-9 team who had a quarterback who had 35 turnovers. So, you take that record that they had, that's 7-9, and then you just ask the quarterback to be competent, and you have a playoff team. And now, don't get me wrong, I think what Brady brought, bringing some of that Patriot way there, the accountability, the ability to challenge the coaching staff in a way that says, hey, this works. I know this works because I've done it before. I think that's what put them over from being a good playoff team to our Super Bowl champions. But I just think what Brady was doing on the field itself was like totally overblown. But I'm also a quote unquote Brady hater, so that may be my bias against him.
Yeah, well, it's easy to sometimes. I would say, obviously Brady's certainly more professional than Jameis Winston. But Bruce Arians, to his credit, he's obviously a good coach. He's obviously a good leader of quarterbacks, as he's shown in the past, whether it's Andrew Luck or Ben Roethlisberger. But he pushed away the credit. He deflected a lot of the credit, whether he was saying that Tom Brady coaches the team sometimes. He was giving a lot of credit to Leftwich and Bowles. So that's kind of like, it started from the top. Like, he definitely gave everyone their due, at least in his own coaching staff, whether the media wanted to or not. Arians definitely was good on that. But it almost felt like one of those situations like when Tyronn Lue was coaching LeBron James, where Leftwich, everyone's like, what is he really doing? It's definitely all Tom. When really, obviously, Leftwich has been a QB in the league. He's been a leader of men, and obviously he knows how to run an offense. So I think it was one of those things where Tom Brady, the shadow he cast was so large that you almost forget about Leftwich for a while, and you kind of belittle what he actually did. But I mean, in that game, it was impressive. I mean, you kind of had a feeling that Gronk was going to be Gronk in that game. I mean, after going on boat parties all last year and kind of taking the year off, he started the year a little slow, and by the end, obviously, he made his mark. There were so many pieces of that game plan that deserve so much credit.
You know, you talk about Gronk, and I think that Brady threw those touchdowns to both Gronk and AB just to say, hey, New England, we had these guys here. You know, we could have kept these guys. You could have kept me.
Yeah, I mean, Bill, not that Bill is stupid, but he definitely looks like he made the wrong decision with that one. I mean, to his credit, I mean, Tom Brady didn't look as good in New England the last couple of years. Like, he definitely looked like he fell off a little bit. But obviously now we know if you give him a real receiving core, that wouldn't happen.
Exactly, man. I got some videos that I might just take off of YouTube because I was talking about the Brady and Gronk Buccaneers being a G-Wagon with the gas light on. And yeah, it's a nice vehicle, but it's just not enough gas left in the tank. And it might
You can't rev it up. You can't rev it up. You're scared.
And guess what? They made it. But the thing you said about Ty Lue, I think that was a great one because it's really Ty Lue doesn't get enough credit for what he did. As far as somebody who knew how to manage talent, manage egos, and be selfless enough to not get credit for what he's doing as a coach. Because if you see what Ty Lue's doing with the Clippers now, Kawhi's playing back-to-backs. They're playing a better brand of basketball. And not to say that Ty Lue can go do what Nick Nurse is doing in Toronto with that type of talent, but I don't think that Nick Nurse can do what Ty Lue has done with the talent that he has either. You know, every coach doesn't have to be the great X's and O's guy, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. To be a great coach, sometimes you got to know, hey, I have these good players, and instead of, you know, trying to win my way, I'm going to win what's best for the team. And I think that's Andy Reid's problem. Andy Reid, like so many NFL coaches, has such a large ego. It's like, hey, we're going to win my way. So Tampa Bay saying, hey, Andy, run the ball. Hey, Andy, maybe you might want to max protect or leave a back end to chip, leave a back end to block. Bring your second tight end to come in and block it. Andy goes, no, we're going to go 5 against your 4. And we're going to beat you. But guess what? It didn't work. For the first time, Patrick Mahomes has looked human in the NFL. I don't recall seeing one rhythm pass the entire game.
No, there was one play, I believe it was maybe in the first quarter or maybe the early second before the game got away, where they used the receiver screen to block the end, and Mahomes went around for like an 8-yard run. And it was the only time all game that they really you saw people chip on the defensive ends, like Pierre-Paul, the game of his life. 8-0 in the postseason, by the way, is Jason Pierre-Paul. Has never lost a postseason game, which is wild to me. I just want to touch on real quick with the last thing on the offensive coordinator thing. I think the NFL and its owners have this stereotype they're trying to fulfill constantly. They think that if you're 38 and white with a neck beard, that you're an offensive genius, and that no other person that doesn't fit that description can be that. When I feel like everyone's stuck trying to find the next Sean McVay, and obviously that reflected in all these coaching hires, whether it's Kingsbury last year or 2 years ago with the Cardinals, or what is it, Zach Taylor with the Bengals, or this year with the coach of the Eagles hired the guy from Indy. And I think it's like, come on, like you got an OC in the Buccaneers, like former QB. It doesn't have to fit your stereotype to be a good offensive play caller. And then there's a couple of notes that I had here. I heard earlier in the week, I don't know if you noticed this, Travis Kelce is so good at getting first downs. And one of the notes was that he's so ready to turn around after he catches the ball. He'll catch it, and he's already ready to turn upfield. But because of that, he has a couple drops here and there. Definitely had a key drop on third down. Maybe it was the second quarter. And then Mike Remmers, that poor bastard. He got destroyed by Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware against in that Denver Super Bowl with Carolina, and then today he just had his lunch handed to him. I don't think he should be anything more than an emergency tackle at this point, at least in big moments.
Should he even be an emergency tackle?
It was turnstile-ish. That's the only way I can describe it.
And I'm not somebody who watches line play intently because, for one, it's boring. And as a personality, I am not ever going to be the guy who's going to tell you what's going on in the trenches. I will defer to those who do that, right? But when you're watching the game it's like Pat cannot go 3 steps plant. He cannot go 5 steps plant. What was it? He ran 497 yards escaping the rush.
He got his cardio in for sure on turf toe. Great game plan, huh?
Yeah, I just, it's just unfortunate that Andy Reid didn't adjust, but it goes back to who Andy Reid is and has always been. He got away with it last year because, don't get me wrong, great coach, had a great team, but
great guy, obviously.
And you're a Philly fan, so you felt this. This is actually hurt you. Andy Reid is an awful game manager. What the hell are you doing with your timeouts at the end of the second quarter, Andy?
Yeah.
I get that you're trying to, say our defense is going to make a stop, but they didn't. And I'm not saying that the officiating was perfect because it's not. But then you end up giving up a touchdown where the Bucs were going to run the clock out.
Yeah, I think to me, and obviously – it's easy to say this from your computer chair, but I think that the media is going to rip apart taking those timeouts. But that's who they've been all year, is it not? Like, they've been very aggressive. They're going to call timeouts, so I can't hate him as much for that decision because it's just having confidence in Mahomes to then get the ball with 48 seconds left and drive down the field and be who he should have been, I guess. So I can't hate him as much for that. But I think that there's this thing about making the halftime adjustment, where we're like, coaches, how to make halftime adjustments. But if you wait till halftime to make your adjustment, you're done. It's about the timeout adjustments. It's about like those timeout in the first quarter adjustments. It's about the between the first and the second quarter changes you make to the game plan. And there was none of that. The Chiefs had the same game plan the whole game. They couldn't solve the cover 2. And how much better? You got to feel good for Carlton Davis. Got burnt for like 250, 60 yards in one quarter last time they played, and he played lockdown. Did you see him the whole game? That's the best thing you can say to a corner, because I didn't see you the whole game. They took Hill out of the game. And can I just say, can we stop giving QBs the Super Bowl MVP? Tom Brady wasn't the MVP of this game. And obviously we can go back through history. Eli Manning was not the MVP of that Super Bowl. There's just so many other instances where it's like, give it to the D lineman, give it to this guy who played out of his mind. Like, I know that you can't give it to units, but like, give it to the D line, give it to all 3 of those linebackers. That pisses me off. And
the problem is like how I just said. I'm not checking for trench play. I see the obvious stuff, right?
Right.
But who in the media that gets these votes knows line play that well? Like, I listen to Ryan Russillo every week, and he constantly talks about, I know a little bit, but I don't know what to look for. Like, I don't know if someone's supposed to kick out or block down, and you see stuff like that. And it was easy. It was convenient to say, oh, let's give it to Tom. It's his 5th. He's the reason that they're here. And it's like, he did what he was supposed to do. He
played good. Yeah.
And he took shots when he was supposed to, safe shots like he always does. But I'd say 60% of the quarterbacks in the NFL would have won that game with the way that Kansas City failed to adjust to Tampa Bay's defense. Am I crazy for saying that?
I mean, another thing that kind of gets brought up there is that like that whole remember that couple years ago where they're like that big middle linebacker who clogs the run is done. You need to be able to cover in space as a linebacker now. I think that Tampa Bay benefited from that like otherworldly. All their linebackers are fast and smart in coverage, so I think that the linebacker renaissance that's been kind of slowly happening is here. Absolutely. There wasn't a big, slow 6'5" guy run stuffer on the field, I don't think. It was just also, is Le'Veon Bell cooked? Was he on the field? Is he hurt? Did Andy Reid forget him on the bus? I haven't looked into that, but like nothing's come out. I thought he was going to be a game changer for them once he got up to speed. And I mean, obviously, that the rookie Edwards-Helaire had been dealing with an injury since like halfway through the season, but like Bell,
but Clyde looked good. They averaged like 7 yards to carry on the ground. Like, hey, this is working. And we were afraid that Bruce Arians wasn't going to do that. Be like, hey, let's be balanced, pound, play action. And Bruce did it. So a major credit to them. But, you know, one thing about the game that really, really stuck with me is I want to know what Tom Brady said to Tyrann Mathieu on the field.
I mean, what? He called him a bitch. He said something about his mom. I don't know. Like, Tom Brady's never been one to be quiet about shit talking. Absolutely. Like, he'll talk trash.
But why does Brady get the benefit of the doubt? For one, Honey Badger gets the penalty called on him. And if you watch
that was awful.
You go, come on, man. It's you either throw nothing or you throw two and you offset them because both of them are going back and forth at each other. But even in the coverage of it, and how you just said, Brady's been one to talk shit, but we never talk about Brady being a shit talker. We talk about Phillip Rivers being a shit talker. We talk about Jameis eating the dogs, you know. We talk about the other quarterbacks that may not necessarily fit the pretty boy corporate mold that Tom does, but Tom gets a pass because, oh, well, Psycho Tom, because he's winning. It's passion. Like, no, bro. Tom talks shit just like everybody else talks shit. Tom just goes in front of the podium and says, well, you know, we played hard today and, you know, on to next week. Great at the podium. And because he's great at the podium and because, again, he fits a certain mold, he gets the benefit of the doubt when it's like, you can't be that damn good at that age and not have a crazy, intense edge about you.
That's the word. That's the word is edge. I also think there's another Tom Brady comparison. He walked off the field multiple times this year when he lost without giving a handshake to the opposing quarterback. And then we blame Cam Newton for that post game of the Super Bowl when he's being a bad sport. But Tom Brady's just passionate. You're right. He fits a mold and he gets away with that stuff because of it. But I mean, what do you say to Richard Sherman? I'm going to kick your ass. And then after the game, Sherman looks like the villain. And obviously Sherman, there's a little bit more to Sherman than just that moment, obviously. But yeah. I mean, he's got caught in his tracks before. Not often, but once or twice.
I think the B word was used personally.
Yeah. He was mic'd up, wasn't he? We'll get to hear it eventually, right?
No, they'll burn the tapes. just like, you know, the Bulls in 94, 95, you know, we'll burn the tapes.
Yeah. Just like that Kings Lakers series from 03. It's never going to be seen again.
Never. But, you know, congrats to Tom. Congrats to Tampa Bay. Do you think that Tom is the GOAT of GOATs?
Yeah, I mean, I was saying this to you before the pod started. You can't compare him to football players anymore. It just doesn't really does not compute, honestly. Like, you can't compare him to Montana anymore because he did it with a different team. Obviously, Montana took the Chiefs to the AFC Championship game, but he didn't get him over the hump, which is a whole different ordeal. This is the equivalent of Michael Jordan going to the Wizards and winning an NBA championship there. Just in terms of the equivalent of what Tampa Bay is as a franchise to the NFL and what the Wizards are to the NBA, it's very similar in like just how bad they've been. just organizationally and just all the pieces are now. Tampa Bay's defense was kind of good when he came in, and he definitely just jumped in the pilot seat and just kind of hit the buttons better than Jameis Winston did. But I mean, in terms of just what those creamsicle jerseys used to mean, they used to mean 0-14, and now it's like, I mean, Super Bowl champs. So I mean, he definitely gets credit for that. It's definitely is an amazing feat. In terms of the goats, I mean, yeah. I mean, you probably have to go to non-team sport people. I mean, it's Jordan, Brady, and then like, I don't know. Do you got anybody else for me?
You probably have to go Serena, Tiger, maybe Federer.
Right. Tiger, yeah.
A boxer.
Right. Ali. Can we go there?
And so that's kind of where the conversation I was having earlier was about this. And it was coming from the post I saw. It kind of came from it seemed like a non-sports source, right? So they're saying, how can you even say Tom Brady's the GOAT of GOATs when look at what Tiger Woods has done? Look at what Serena has done. And it's like
team sport. It's a different element. You gotta lead 10 men with you everywhere you go.
Exactly. And there's so many other variables that you can't control, but Tom has shown where he goes, winning follows. And I can't be a hater forever. I just can't hate on Brady forever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate his passion. I don't hate him. I can definitely dislike some of his habits or some of the things that have happened, but I mean, that's just being a fan, you know. Has there ever been my question also is, are they the most unlikable Super Bowl roster in the last 10 to 20 years? Between Brady, who for all his greatness, it definitely gets a fair share of hate just because of how good he is and how much of, I mean, just kind of how pretentious he can be sometimes with his Uggs and kissing his son and whatnot. You got Ndamukong Suh kicking people's heads. He won a Super Bowl. You got Antonio Brown and I don't even want to go through his rap sheet at this point. Is this the most unlikable Super Bowl winner you can think of?
Super Bowl winner, yes. I still don't think they're as unlikable as the 2012 Heat.
Right. I mean, and that was less off the field or off the court than more just kind of the air of superiority they kind of tried to hold themselves to before they've done anything. So yeah, I agree. That's a good point.
But yeah, I was rooting against them all year, and I don't hate AB, and I think AB's done a lot of terrible things. But I'm not in that kill AB camp because what I've seen is he needs football.
That's an interesting way to look at it. And obviously there's a lot of good dudes on that team too. We can't just
Yeah. You got your Mike Evans who's already talking about taking a pay cut.
Yeah.
Chris Godwin, who gave Tom Brady his number and didn't charge him, that would have been at least $100,000. At least. I might want $250,000.
Levante David, consummate professional.
Yeah. So I'm just happy. I'm happy that it's over. But let's transition a little bit into, you talked about Bruce Arians and his coordinators and how he gave his coordinators a lot of, they're just due for what they did. And if you don't know, they have one of the more diverse coordinator rooms in the NFL, very diverse staff, but more importantly, at the top 3 positions, he has 3 African-American coaches. And then he also has 2 female coaches on his staff. Do you think that because the NFL is a copycat league, like you talk about the Sean McVays, the neckbeards, that personality that has yet to win a Super Bowl, by the way, they get there, but they come up short. Do you think the NFL will see this diversity on their Super Bowl champion and say, hey, look, there are qualified people who don't fit the mold that we typically look for these positions?
You would hope so. And that's a great point that none of these 38-year-old boy geniuses have done anything. I mean, Sean McVay's come close, but even he's the prototype. I mean, I think that and tell me if I'm wrong with this, I think that when black coaches come in, they're almost expected to be motivators as opposed to X's and O's guys.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's definitely like a stereotype that I don't understand. And I feel like Todd Bowles gets the Jim Caldwell Award of the coach with the lowest pulse. He doesn't look like he's ever sweating. He doesn't look like he's ever under pressure. That guy is not a motivator, at least not that I see on the outside, obviously. And I feel like that may hurt him because he doesn't fill that black coaching stereotype. But like, dude knows X's and O's. Absolutely. What is he the best Jets head coach other than maybe Rex Ryan for 2 years? And what we've seen, at least in a lifetime, like he did an all right job with what is usually a terrible team. He almost got Ryan Fitzpatrick to the playoffs, right?
Yeah. And they were in a rebuild, and they say, hey, and they're like, hey, we're gonna fire you because you're not winning. It's almost like, and this is gonna be unpopular. I look at Hugh Jackson.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong, Hugh was terrible in Cleveland by his record. But they were in the middle of a rebuild. They were selling off picks to get more assets, and it's like the front office didn't want to win, so he didn't win, and then he's a bad coach. He goes, no, I don't.
It's hard to
coach.
Yeah, well, his thing is hard too because remember in that Hard Knocks episode, his mom died in training camp. Like that dude was going through some stuff. Also, like he probably should have taken a break in that moment anyway. I know a lot of times you're trying to work through it and use work to ease your mind, but that was weird to see too. I also think it's hard when you're put in and you're told lose games, or at least you're put in a position to lose games and not let just a terrible culture consume that football team, which is why someone like, ironically, Brian Flores is so impressive. He was put in there and they were like, lose games. And he was like, no. Like they got killed that first game. Everyone wanted out of the Dolphins. They traded Minkah Fitzpatrick. And by the end of the year, they have like 5 or 6 wins. And obviously it carried over to this year. So I think you're right. I mean, Jeff Fisher is the ultimate example, always, obviously. I mean, Adam Gase, there's just a lot of people that, you know, if they didn't look the way they look, they wouldn't have the chances they have. And you hope, but I say this kind of as a joke and kind of seriously that like, but don't be surprised if the biggest takeaway from the Super Bowl coordinator wise is that Eric Bieniemy shouldn't be a head coach. And like, I say that as a joke, but also it's sad, but it might be true.
You know, Dan Campbell wasn't employed. I'd play along. But yeah, man, I don't think anything's going to change personally because you can't change the owners and they're old billionaires. And you don't tell old billionaires what to do. And unfortunately, what we see in sports is that the owner of the team, the top, is not always invested in what the team is actually there to do. Because for one, if you look at what most of these guys own, they are experts in that field. Sports doesn't work that way. It's hard to become an expert in sports and then make enough money to own a team. Maybe Arthur Smith gets to become that guy if he inherits the FedEx from his dad, you know, current coach of the Falcons. You got your Jerry Jones, who is a decent football mind, or at one point was a decent football mind. You know,
he did good in the beginning, right? He had a fast start and then has been terrible since, I think.
Right, but you don't have your Al Davis as somebody who was actually a no-shit GM and was able to purchase a team now because the teams cost so much that only the rich of the rich can buy them, and they're not sports people. So it's a weird business structure if you think about it. Like, hey, you're going to own this thing that you don't really know anything about, but all you're going to care about is your bottom line, which is what you care about in all your other businesses, but that's not actually always what's best for your success as a owner of a franchise.
Well, that's why, and not to cross sports, but like that's why we love people like Mark Cuban. Like, not only has he invested time and like energy and resources in like learning how to be a sports guy, but like I think part of it is also like caring about your entire organization, like actually caring about these people, caring about your players, caring about the culture within your building. And Obviously, even they had some issues with that that we don't have to get into, but definitely not perfect. I think that and not that this has even worked. So sports is such a hard business because even my idea would be something, and the NBA does it, like they put Jerry West in charge, and wherever he goes, he does well. But then in the NFL, you put like John Elway in charge, and he got it done. He got a Super Bowl out of it, but then that team's been terrible for 5 years. So I think that like it's just so hard to find an example that's consistently a good idea besides hire Bill Belichick. Like that's the only proven method to winning 20 years straight.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the postseason awards. Start off the top. Aaron Rodgers, MVP. Was his third MVP of his career. One of, I think, 3 or 4 people who have that many MVPs. He's up there with Brady and Peyton. And Favre got, 2 or 3?
Yeah, 3. He got 3.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, Favre with 3. What are your thoughts? I thought Aaron Rodgers should have been the MVP of the league. I'm an Aaron Rodgers guy. I watched. He's been a different Aaron Rodgers the last 2 years, even better than he was last year, this past season. I don't have any complaints about it, although there is an argument that could have gone for Brady that's going to be similar to LeBron in basketball this year. There's so many intangibles that don't show up that made the team what it was. But I think Aaron Rodgers deserved that award personally.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things, and this goes through most sports. Why does it take so long? I think these awards would hit home more, and I'm sure there's a method to the madness and to keep your sport relevant even after the Super Bowl happens. But like, announce it after Wild Card Weekend. It makes more sense. Like it seems to always bite the guy or the team or the league in the ass, where it's like, he's eliminated and he wins the MVP. It happened with Giannis. It happened with Rodgers this year. It's like, can we announce it after the Wild Card Weekend so it makes a little more sense? Like, this guy's great. Oh, and then he won a playoff game, as opposed to like putting these guys in a position to get debated. Like, he obviously was the MVP, but because we announced it after he had not a terrible postseason showing, but like he lost when he probably shouldn't have lost. It just looks like he wasn't when he definitely was. And then also, can we just call this the QB of the Year award? I mean, it's another thing where just QBs, and I know that they're the brain of the offense. It's the most important position in sports, but like, I mean, some love to somebody else, whether it's Derrick Henry or Aaron Donald or it just over and over. Let's just call it what it is. It's the QB of the Year. It goes to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I totally agree. They should just, because honestly, the offensive player of the year ends up becoming the guy who's not the quarterback who's the MVP, right? Yeah. But damn, I forgot what I was gonna say, and I'm gonna admit it on here. What is wrong with me? So yeah, I agree that they should just do it early, because why are we waiting? But they want to have the show, the actual awards show, so now people can show up pre-COVID, and then they make that an event, and it's like, bro, if I'm eliminated from the playoffs, I don't even want this right now.
Right. If you're that pissed off about losing, like, do people show up to this? I usually watch the monologue because it's usually like a funny presenter, whether it's like Steve Harvey or Key and Peele or somebody did the other year. And like, it's funny. It's like the ESPYs. It's a funny presenter, but like the actual awards, we're just going to go to Twitter. You don't need a presentation for that. And I know money talks. They're not going to listen. They're going to get their broadcast slot, and they're going to try to stay in the media cycle. But it just seems like those are two easy fixes, where it's like, can we just either call it the QB of the Year award and move it up? But those are my thoughts on that.
What about Offensive Player of the Year, Derrick Henry?
I mean, yeah, he's the guy that wasn't the QB that was the best this year. I mean, got over 2,000 yards, and he made the playoffs. It's different than like, obviously they was also on the Titans, but didn't Chris Johnson go like 7-9 or 8-8 and get over 2,000 yards in a season where he was just running in garbage time most of the time anyway? Like, Derrick Henry was the engine for an offensive team that actually made the postseason. So absolutely him.
Derrick Henry is the reason that my team hired somebody who I still don't know how I feel about. Okay. Now, defensive player of the year got a little drama there. The Watt brothers took to Twitter to voice their thoughts because Aaron Donald won the award for we should just make this the Aaron Donald Memorial Award because it's his.
That dude's awesome.
TJ Watt didn't get it, and there was a feeling that he was snubbed because if you look at the major statistics for a defensive lineman, he had better stats than Aaron Donald.
Like pressures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like did he get home as much too?
I think so, honestly. If you beat me to it,
let's see.
But what I found to be interesting about that is
he did. Yeah, Watt had 15, Aaron Donald had 13 and a half. But I mean, still impressive.
Right. And I think though what the voters looked at was some of the intangibles of this though. The attention that Aaron Donald attracts every single play, the way that offenses are building their game plan around minimizing what Aaron Donald does and they still can't do it. And I think that TJ Watt had a great season, but the Steelers had a really good defense for most of the season. They had a really good pass rush. So you could not just focus in on TJ Watt the same way you did on Aaron Donald.
Yeah, and it seemed that the Rams, I mean, they were relatively stout all year on defense. The Steelers seemed to kind of lose steam, especially on national TV. I'm sure that didn't help. I'm sure they lost to the Browns on national TV. I know it's playoffs and we're not supposed to count that, but you can't tell me the voters didn't look at that and be like, where was Watt this whole game? I mean, it just seemed like every time I saw them play on national TV, like I saw them play the Redskins late in the year, and that's like games when they get close and like people actually are watching football. It's the end of the year. It means something. Nobody's showing up. I mean, it also helps that every time the Rams on national TV, the announcers are pointing to Aaron Donald and what he does well, even when he's on the bench getting a water break. I mean, good Lord, like they're just all over him. It's almost like the Tom Brady effect. Like, oh man, look at him drink that water. He's so good at drinking that water, isn't he amazing, Bill? Like, good Lord. So they definitely have a crush on Aaron Donald. Sports media does.
Oh man, and I think one of their new crushes is the offensive rookie of the year, Justin Herbert.
Yeah. And not to say that Donald's not good or Herbert's not good. They're both good players. But
yeah. I guess there's an argument for Justin Jefferson, but again, it goes back to the MVP thing. If it's between a quarterback and another position, quarterback wins every time.
Yeah. I mean Jefferson's been awesome. I mean, it's funny. It's almost funny sometimes. We're like, what did he have? 20 touchdowns his last year at college, and we're like, well, that was in college. And sometimes this stuff is really that simple. Where he was good in college, he's going to be good in the NFL, and like we overthink it sometimes.
Bro, just like Lamar Jackson, they go, nah, he can't do this in the NFL. And if you look at his numbers from his Heisman season and his MVP season, they are like so close, like 3,500 plus passing yards, over 1,000 rushing yards, 30 plus TDs. You go, no, some people are just so good that they can do the same thing on each level. Yeah.
And that's also, he went to the perfect team. He went to a coach that was actually willing to adjust to him as opposed to, he has to fit in my five-step drop offense, or he has to fit in my West Coast offense. Like, I think that's also, and not to take away from Lamar Jackson, but he also went into a great situation where they adapted to him.
He's had a coach who looked at his talent and said, we're going to maximize your talent, as opposed to what happened in Atlanta with Michael Vick. Hey, Michael Vick, you're going to be a West Coast offense quarterback. Excuse me?
Yeah, you're not gonna figure it out until you go to prison and get your life together 8 years later, unfortunately.
Exactly. So I'm happy to see that this is happening in the NFL, and it's trickling down to the college game, to the high school game, that these supreme athletes who are 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", are getting to play quarterback as opposed to being told, no, you got to go play wide receiver. No, you got to go play DB. It's like, why? I got the best arm on the team. I just happen to be the fastest. Why can't I run and throw?
Yeah, and the game's adjusting rule-wise where that, like, those kind of players aren't going to get their head bashed in every game like they would have in the 80s or even like the early 2000s. So I think it's made the game better, honestly.
And I think having someone like Lamar Jackson, someone a little bit smaller, helps out because Cam Newton did not get the same benefit of the data. Go, oh, well, no, he's fine. He's big. Like, so the rule is the rule.
Yeah, well, running style didn't help him. I feel like as much as Lamar Jackson runs tough, Cam Newton was trying to truck people. I haven't seen Lamar Jackson too much, but I'm sure he doesn't do that at 180.
No, not at all. He's that hot.
Yeah. Right.
Kevin Stefanski, Coach of the Year.
I mean, it's hard to. I mean, there's a lot of good candidates for this, but I mean, he made the Browns good. I mean, that's all you need to say. He made the Browns good. They lost Odell Beckham, and they got him better when he was out. That could be, a Ewing theory proposition or just the fact that they got in rhythm towards the end. But, like, I mean, that's all I got to say. You made the Browns good. I've never seen the Browns good.
You think Odell comes back?
I mean, if it's his, does he have 1 year left on his contract?
I want to say he has a few years left, but I mean,
I think if he has years left, then yeah, I think he does. Just because that team is good, and obviously he saw what they could do without him. If he doesn't, I think that guy goes straight to Los Angeles. I think that he's made for a city with bright lights.
Absolutely, he's not Cleveland.
Nah, that doesn't seem to. And maybe we're wrong. Maybe he likes a city with a rich football history and a great fan base, which, I mean, would be fun also, I think. But, I mean, yeah, definitely seems like he wants to be in LA or, Dolphins maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, so he's under contract until 2023. Okay. I'm not going into the specifics as far as how
guaranteed money.
Yeah, about guaranteed money, but he's under contract until 2023. So we agree on that. And comeback player of the year. And I hope he does not come back next year. Alex Smith.
Cool. Yeah. That's one of those things where, like, yeah, you stop coming back, man. It's making me nauseous. I mean, yeah, he absolutely gets it. Did you watch the documentary, by the way?
No, some things I'm just good off of.
That's fair.
So it ruined my bet for Big Ben as comeback player of the year because I felt like Big Ben would have won despite the way he looked towards the end of the season. Right. I threw money on Big Ben and Cam Newton, which Cam Newton threw ground balls all year. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you could have gone Rob Gronkowski if the postseason started, right? Although that was more of a self-imposed comeback. It wasn't like he got hurt or anything. He just took a break.
Right. So good for Alex Smith, man. And Sean, I forgot to tell you in pre-production because that's what I do sometimes. My memory is awful. And Hall of Fame inductees. Got a new Hall of Fame class. Headlined by everyone's favorite quarterback, Peyton Manning. But we also have Charles Woodson, Calvin Johnson, Drew Pearson, Alan Faneca, Bill Nunn, John Lynch, and Tom Flores. So I want to focus here on Calvin Johnson because of the players who are getting inducted, of the modern era players, I think he's the only one that may come with a little bit of controversy as seeing that he is a first ballot Hall of Famer after having playing wide receiver, and we know how they treat that position in the Hall of Fame, after having a short career and seeing greats like T.O. and Chris Carter have to wait to get in. How do you feel about Calvin Johnson getting in as a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Well, I think Calvin Johnson and obviously Chris Carter and less so T.O. has definitely gotten his life together. But in terms of, like, Calvin Johnson has been a quiet stand-up dude, never any issues. So I think it was probably a little easier for voters to put him in. I don't have a problem with having a short and sweet career as long as it's it's amazing. Even if you retire early, as long as it was amazing for 8 years, like he was obviously the best receiver in the NFL for, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years straight. That's all it takes for me. I'd rather have greatness in short spurts than I'd rather have Calvin Johnson than someone like Frank Gore. Like I'd rather you be great for 4 years than okay for 25 years. And that it seems to rub people the wrong way. I don't know about you, but my only problem with that is that they didn't put Patrick Willis in before Calvin Johnson. Similar concept. He was great for a very short amount of time. He was the best linebacker I've seen. He was the next coming of Ray Lewis. He had postseason success. I think they should have went with him first, but obviously the wideout is more flashy than the linebacker.
So you're not going to get much of an argument out of me because I was on here after Phillip Rivers retired saying, I don't think Phillip Rivers is going to
That's a good one too, yeah.
He's going to have Hall of Fame stats, but I watched Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers was never the best quarterback in the league. He was a top quarterback, but he was a top quarterback who would always disappoint you. Just like a Matt Ryan of the world. But at least Matt Ryan has an MVP and a Super Bowl appearance that may be good enough. Or even Eli. Like, Eli is not a Hall of Fame quarterback. I'm sorry. He was average. He was average and had 2 playoff runs. He's Joe Flacco with a different last name.
I think he's Joe Flacco who got just a little bit more lucky, or maybe not even luck, because obviously luck plays a part in this. But
think about it, it's luck. In the first Super Bowl, you got helmet catch, and second Super Bowl, you got Manningham who pulled his damn toe out of his cleat to score that touchdown. We
don't talk about that catch enough.
No, we don't.
Absolutely not.
Eli got extremely lucky to win his 2 Super Bowls. Look at Flacco. Flacco won his 1, but the year before, if Lee Evans doesn't drop that pass in the end zone, they're in the Super Bowl, and they probably win.
Yeah. So I think you're on my side then. I think the Hall of Fame should be harder to get into.
Yeah.
I think we're on that, or we're on team harder Hall of Fame. I think the NBA is falling victim to this too, but
I won't talk basketball Hall of Fame on here because it's wasting my time. I mean, Jimmer Fredette's going to get in for what he did in China.
Oh man, yeah, no, I definitely agree. The Phillip Rivers thing, I agree with that too. I'd rather you play for 8 years and me watching just a relatively casual fan of another team where, if you play the Eagles, I'm watching my team. I'm not watching your team. I always notice the guys who stick out. Like, I'm going to watch all my players. I'll notice what my average backup running back did because it's the fan of my team. But, the guys that stand out to me are the truly special people. Like, Calvin Johnson was always terrifying to play against. Patrick Willis was always terrifying to play against. And guess what? Calvin Johnson says he played for 1, 2, 3. Yeah, is it 9? 07 to 15. I mean, he went over 1,000 yards in all but 2 of them. Doesn't he hold the league record for that 1,964 yards receiving? I'm pretty sure that's a league record.
Yeah.
He was great while he played, and he did not. He played for 4 years. He played for 9 years.
And again, he was always in that conversation of best at his position. And if you're in that conversation for an extended period of time, I think you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, man. So let's get to some of the offseason news that's been going on. Where do you want to go? Let's get back to coaching. There have been some interesting coaching hires, to say the least. My guy Cowherd, I know you've turned on Cowherd, and that's so unfortunate.
I don't dislike as much as I used to. I appreciate his craft.
I'm happy. He talked about this being a great year of coaching candidates, but a bad year of coaching hires.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good call.
Because he even said, he was like, I think Urban's probably the best hire, and he's a college guy who's done absolutely nothing in the NFL ever.
He's the most fun hire for sure. He's definitely the most interesting, the one you're like, ooh, that's fun. But again, we all know the history of college coaches coming into the NFL. It's not great.
I mean, you got you got Pete Carroll.
Sure, but for every Pete Carroll, you got Nick Saban.
Nick
And,
Saban got
Audie
fucked over by his doctor not clearing Drew Brees, so they got Dante Culpepper instead.
That's an interesting take on it. Definitely fair enough. I mean, first off, let's look at last year's. Although, just like in terms of like how you can react in the moment and how it can be completely different. Like Joe Judge, such a random hire, no idea, not a sexy hire, but like I'd say relatively good hire. Would you agree?
I agree.
So far,
so far, yeah, because he's brought a culture that they've bought into. I wasn't a big. I'm like special teams coordinator. I mean, he's coached under Saban, he's coached under Belichick, so he knows what winning looks like. He knows what right looks like, but he's not a offensive or defensive guy. But as I've gotten older and more wise, you don't necessarily need an offensive specialist or a defensive specialist as your head coach because that's what you hire coordinators for.
Sure. I guess my point is like random hire, but seems to be the right hire, at least to this point. And then you go to someone like Matt Rule, who it's like he was the sexy hire last year. It was like, oh, he makes teams go better everywhere he went. He turned around Baylor. He turned around Temple. And like the Panthers sucked last year. I feel like they were like the team that every week you're like, I think this Panthers team could win. And every week they're like, they're not very good. So
but they had no Christian McCaffrey.
Right. Although Mike Davis played pretty well. But they don't have a QB. They don't have a QB.
I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
But the Matt Rule thing, him turning around Baylor, I'm sorry, turning around a Texas college football program is like turning around a fucking car. It's not right. If you are a coach with a pulse, especially what Baylor was coming off of, Art Briles was running a good program down there. They were just doing some not good stuff. So it's not like Baylor was awful.
Right.
Turn around because those boosters hadn't left. They're still writing those checks.
No, you're right. But hey, but we can get back to the current ones. We want to go down the list?
Yeah.
We got Robert Saleh, New York Jets. What do you think?
I don't know. I say I don't know because he's a motivator, rah-rah guy. He had a good defense that had good players.
Yeah.
But they play an outdated form of defense that just if you don't have players that cover three Pete Carroll style of defense just doesn't really work. Like you you don't have the personnel. You're not going to out scheme people is what I'm getting at.
So what you're saying is that the Jets should draft a pass rusher instead of a QB when they got their first round pick. I'm just saying because I feel like the Niners had so much defensive line talent. That was hard. It was not that it was hard not to be good, but like he definitely had all the pieces. You're right. He had so many. Like that team seems to find linebackers off the scrap heap every year. But they had a bunch of dudes who knew what they were doing on defense. You're right.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on Saleh?
Everything I saw pointed to Detroit, which was interesting. Can you hear me still?
Yeah. I'm listening.
All right, cool. I got a weird headphones noise. Everything pointed to Detroit because I think everyone was trying to point to his background and everything. But I mean, I like head coaches that call either defensive signals or offensive plays because then when you get the brain drain, when you get successful and everyone wants to take all your coordinators from you, at least you don't lose your play caller on one side of the ball. So I do like it. But the whole thing comes down to like whether the Jets, after 2 years of going 6-10 or 7-9, will keep him. You can't just every 2 years fire a guy who's trying to get your program back in order. I mean, sometimes it happens that way, but sometimes you got to let him go. But I guess we'll see.
Just thinking though, just let's go a little what if. You're a Raider guy. You know they like the what ifs. What if they don't fire Todd Bowles? They let him play it out to now, maybe he's not the guy. You replace him with Salah, but obviously Tampa Bay doesn't win a Super Bowl. But also, man, you've shown the NFL community that there is some stability here. That, hey, we just kept a coach for 5 years. I know he didn't do what maybe he didn't do what we wanted him to do, but we're just taking these 5 years to show the rest of the NFL, if you are an up-and-coming coordinator, or if you're an old head coach looking for a coordinator job, that you can come here and you don't have to worry about getting fired in 2 years.
Yeah, and then if you keep going that what if, obviously chain reaction, they probably wouldn't have been bad enough to get, or they might not have been bad enough or had the same pick to get Jamal Adams. But like, if you have stability like that and you don't have someone like Adam Gase, who I think we can all agree shouldn't be a head coach, you don't let a player of that caliber, of Jamal Adams' caliber, go, even if you don't have him. It doesn't seem like a place, if you have stability, you just let good players go, which has set a weird precedent with that team also, where it's like, don't come here if you want to play good football. So I think that changes the whole face of it, honestly.
Maybe Le'Veon Bell doesn't fall off of a cliff.
Or maybe he still does.
Let's see. What about the Lions? We're talking about Detroit. How do you feel about the Lions hire the knee biter?
I mean, that guy's got to be a rah-rah guy as opposed to X's and O's, right? I mean, when you click on his name on Google, he's still playing football. He also looks like he kicked my ass and yours at the same time. I don't want to speak for both of us, but
I own things that can protect me from such occurrences.
That's fair, but can they protect you from knee biting? Well, I guess hopefully we'll never have to find that out.
Yeah, I'm not into that whole fighting thing. I use this thing and I call 911.
I think obviously the press conference is weird, but like he doesn't get paid for giving. I mean, it's kind of, but like he's not going to be successful if he gives a good press conference or not. He's going to be a good football coach or not. I mean, it's one of those things where anybody but Matt Patricia seems like they'd be great at this point, right? It's also one of those things where like, who are their coordinators? Because it seems like with a motivational guy like someone who's not offensively or defensively inclined, that like their coordinators do then end up mattering a lot. But then they're going to be in a rebuilding phase anyway. They're going to have Jared Goff and whoever else the QB. So I'm not exactly sure what you could really go on right there in Detroit.
At least they gave him a 6-year contract that it says, "Hey, we're committed to you, Dan Campbell."
Yeah, I guess so. I guess they can fire whoever. I did like my favorite hire there is they hired Eagles running back coach Deuce Staley, who I think was gypped out of a chance of being our offensive coordinator. So maybe they let him move up the line eventually, but hopefully I wish him the best. So that's somewhere he can thrive.
So you got Deuce and Anthony Lynn coaching together?
Where's Anthony Lynn? Is he Detroit now?
Yeah, he's OC Detroit.
Well, so it looks like they have a lot of. Oh, he is. Did he play ball? Was he in the NFL at some point?
Yeah.
So it looks like they have all players at positions because they got. I have to look at Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator, but they got Anthony Lynn at OC, played in the NFL. Deuce Staley, assistant head coach, running backs coach, played running back in the NFL. Quarterbacks coach, blast from the past, Mark Brunell. And then offensive line coach Hank Fraley, who was also an Eagles center at one point. So they're definitely
played in the league.
What's up?
Aaron Glenn did play in the league.
He did?
Yeah.
And then they're expected to hire Antoine Randall L as the wide receiver coach.
Oh, I like
that's all of them, right? They got all NFL players coaching the team. So honestly, I think I just talked myself into the Lions. I like what they're doing. I like that they're giving former players chances to shine. So a bit of a tangent, but Fansided, I was producing an interview with Ed Reed last week, and he was very distraught. We're just upset, more disappointed in the fact that the NFL, it was difficult for certain players to gain respect as coaches. He said that getting his voice heard as a defensive backs coach, I think with Buffalo, he just didn't feel heard. So it's excellent. It's excellent to hear something like that.
How crazy does that sound? Ed Reed, Hall of Fame safety, one of the best players at his position, voice doesn't get heard in a coaching meeting.
Not to mention that although he looks wise as hell, guy has to be the smartest defensive back I've ever seen. Like one of those dudes who Manning and Brady were like, we got to watch out for this guy. Like, God damn.
Like, have you heard Belichick talk about him?
Yeah.
Like,
it's shocking. It was shocking to hear. It was. I was disappointed that he was disappointed. But
what about Brandon Staley out to the Chargers?
I mean, he has a good QB to start out with. I mean, was he the Rams defensive coordinator, right?
Yeah, for like one season.
Right, and he's another 38-year-old. Okay. I will say I like that the fact that the NFL will go with some younger guys. The fact that they all look kind of the same, we've obviously been over that a little bit, but it's another thing. But I like the fact that, like, all right, this job. Have you ever heard NFL coordinators and coaches talk about how much they sleep at night? It's like 4 to 5 hours. These guys are looking at film like a disgusting amount of time. And so it makes sense that the younger guy would be maybe starting to get hired more for the job, right? Because like they're not as old, they can stay out maybe later. Am I ridiculous?
They're going to stay up and do it and not rest on their experience and what they know.
Yeah, exactly. They're driven. So, I mean, that's definitely good.
I think I like the hire from what I've heard about him. He's an innovative defensive mind. Like, he's blending coverages and he's doing some next level stuff that not many people are doing. And not saying that he's the next Belichick, but you know how Belichick just has done things on defense that's like, what the hell is this?
Right.
I read that Brandon Staley is that type of coach.
Okay. I mean, and just from a personal standpoint, I mean, he beat Hodgkin's lymphoma, which I believe is cancer, right?
Yes.
He beat cancer at age 24. That's pretty impressive. And it seemed that like that Rams defense, I mean, obviously they had some stars. You had Jalen Ramsey, you had Aaron Donald, but like he had that defense humming. Like he had them playing really good. Everybody else too, like that other cornerback, the opposite of Jalen Ramsey was killing it, had his best year ever. And
he had Jalen playing a different way. So Dave Culley to the Texans. He's
Texans.
He's a sacrificial lamb. You know, he's been an NFL lifer. Good for you for finally getting your chance at your first NFL job. I want to root for his success, but I don't really want to root for the Texans to be successful, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I just think he's one of those people who this was going to be his only chance to ever be a head coach in the league. So he's like, I'm just going to take this job just because there's only 32 of them.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that has going for him is he was on Andy Reid's staff at one point, and the Andy Reid coaching tree seems to be one of the more reliable coaching trees in the NFL. And he's been around the NFL forever. I mean, he was a running backs coach for Austin Peay back in like 1978. So he's definitely been around the block. Definitely a little different hire. It's just unfortunate that he has to go in that kind of situation.
Yeah, man. No one wanted that job though. Once Deshaun, said, "Hey, I want to leave." Anybody, any coach who is trying to coach long term, any of the younger coaches are like, "Nah, I'm good off that job." They should have just brought in Jeff Fisher because he's great at moving teams.
Well, then you just got a middling draft pick. At least bring in somebody terrible. Bring Bill O'Brien back and get a top draft pick. Just don't let him trade it away. That doesn't make sense to me. Why do we keep letting coaches be GMs too? It never works. Even with Andy Reid in Philly, like he's a great coach. We know that. We've seen it now over and over again. But don't make him GM.
And his mentor Mike Holmgren didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it just never worked. Again, Bill Belichick is always the exception to the rule. Any rule you have, Bill Belichick is the exception. So I just like coaching is hard enough. Don't make him the GM too. It never works. So Texans should hopefully learn that for the future.
Yeah, so now let's get to the two coaching hires that are personal to the both of us.
There you go. You can go first.
I'll go first. Okay. Arthur Smith to the Falcons. I've talked about it previously on this pod in depth. At first, I was unimpressed. I was like, hell no. He's only been a coordinator for 2 years. And Adam Gase, and I said this before we hired him, I said, Adam Gase is going to get Arthur Smith a job that he doesn't deserve. And it was the stench of Adam Gase all over Ryan Tannehill. Once he got a competent coach around him who could put together a game plan that actually worked, we'd see that Ryan Tannehill is a decent quarterback, a top quarterback in the league if we're judging him based off who he's been in Tennessee, off the numbers, right? But we know that given the scheme that they have, given that they have Derrick Henry, he's better because of what's around him. So my fear with Arthur Smith is that he is a product of Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry is not a product of him. And don't get me wrong, Derrick Henry is a good running back, great running back. He's had his 2 best seasons under Arthur Smith. So I'm hoping that Arthur can bring that same grit to the Falcons. And from what I've seen, from what he's said, from his interviews, it looks like he's bringing accountability and a tough mindset to a team that's lacked accountability, that has a culture that needed to be revamped because the Falcons could not score touchdowns, could not score any in the red zone, could not hold leads. And Arthur Smith has one of the best red zone offenses in the NFL the past 2 seasons.
Okay, that's definitely the bright side of it. I'm going to be a little more negative. I apologize. I got to call it how I see it. One, I think it's hilarious. Like I've been saying, it's another white 38-year-old. It's the trend. They did it again. I think it's ridiculous. I will say that this might mean you're going to try to get some kind of bell cow running back. At least if he tries to emulate what Derrick Henry did, you're going to need a lead back like you had in Tennessee. So I think I don't know if Gurley has the legs in him to be an all down back anymore. No. I will say this guy, and I've listened to Chris Long talk about this, about how a lot of coordinators are fake it till you make it type dudes, or they're just going to bullshit their way to the top. And if you look at his resume, he was a defensive quality control coach, and then he was an offensive quality control coach, and then he was an assistant offensive line coach and an assistant tight ends coach, and then he's an offensive coordinator. So I just like, is he defense? Is he offense? Is he receivers? Is he offensive line? This guy seems like he's faking it till he makes it happen. I mean, and he could be smart, but it just seems like a guy who's just kind of taking whatever they give him. I don't know if he's good at any of this stuff.
He's definitely a line guy. And again, I hope he can help bolster our offensive line because we've been terrible in the trenches. But what are your thoughts on the best head coaching press conference of all of them? Dan Campbell, head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to get paid. Obviously, part of his job is a press conference. But I mean, as long as he puts together a good offensive game plan, I could give a damn about how many times he repeats himself or stutters in front of the Philadelphia media. Hey, we put the pressure on. All right, he cracked under the pressure. He's nervous. He's a young kid, all right? He's only 25. No, I'm joking. Another 39. It wasn't 38. He's 39. I mean, basically, Jeffrey Luria, the Eagles owner, just wanted someone as close to Frank Reich as possible because I think it became clear once Frank Reich left that he took something with him. And Doug Peterson his staff was just never as good after Reich left. So Luria just thinks, all right, let's get some guy who coached under Reich, and we'll see if we can create the magic all over again. He could be good, but I don't think the reason for hiring him was great, to be completely honest. I don't think he called plays for 2 years, which doesn't mean a lot because you could, I don't think Doug Peterson called too many plays, and then he came in and won a Super Bowl. So weirder stuff has happened, but I think the reason for hiring him was bad.
Fair. I don't think the job should have been available. But we'll hit that when we hit our division. Wrap-ups. So let's get to the quarterback carousel that's been going on so far. I think the NFL quarterback is turning into the NBA max player.
Yeah, looking that way.
Like we actually got some movement in the offseason. So the biggest one in the room, Deshaun Watson, where the hell do you think he's going?
I mean, it looks like he's staying put for the time being. I mean, it could just be a game of chicken with the front office. Part of you as a fan wants them to do it. Wants you to be like, hey, stop forcing your way out. We want, like, the fans in Houston probably want you to stay, and it's going to suck for them to see you leave. But at the same time, like, I don't blame them for wanting to get out of a terrible organization, a terrible situation, a place where he just saw his former head coach / GM, for whatever reason, trade the best receiver in the NFL for a broken down running back and like a second round pick or something. I don't blame Deshaun Watson, but it looks like the new owners or the new power structures trying desperately to change this. Although they're doing everything except for exactly what Watson asked, is to keep him in mind and interview Eric Bieniemy, I believe. Like, I think that was his one ask, and that's why he's so pissed off. And they didn't even interview him, which is weird because, like, all you have to do to interview somebody now is click a Zoom link, and they couldn't even do that.
So from what I heard, and I don't remember where I heard it at, but I heard it somewhere. Somewhere credible ish. It was a national show. They were talking about the Bieniemy thing, and apparently Bieniemy wanted to have a FaceTime conversation with Deshaun Watson before taking the interview.
Okay.
They only interviewed him once the trade request became a thing. You know what I find crazy? Not crazy. You know what I find unfortunate, and it's kind of sickening?
Mm-hmm.
That Carson Wentz and Deshaun Watson are being covered totally opposite. But Carson Wentz damn near turned his back on his team during the season once he lost his job. Deshaun Watson played through the entire season, waits to the end of the season, and it's like, hey, you guys are dysfunctional. You said you're going to keep me in the loop on the GM and the coaching hires. You didn't. And now I want to leave. So now Deshaun Watson is demanding out. And Brett Favre is coming in and saying, hey, you get paid a lot of money, boy. Just shut up and throw the ball like I did. Yeah, right, Brett. We know what you did. And Carson Wentz is just trying to get out of Philadelphia because they lost faith in him because he fucking sucked last year.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're talking about the national media, the way they're covering him. Because as fans, and especially as a fan of the Eagles, I hate the way Carson Wentz has done this. I mean, apparently the reports came out that he was uncoachable. He wouldn't listen to criticism or coaching. He was checking plays of the line that Doug Peterson called almost to spite him, I guess, was the report. Now, some of this could be the words of a journalist as opposed to what actually happened. But, like, even stuff came out last year about him not being a great leader or not being a great teammate. And then more stuff came out about players at the end of the year just being like, this guy put out like I guess a statement about, like, maybe he doesn't want to be here, but, like, we got like a couple games left. Like, what is this guy thinking? The moment he gets benched, he quits. He wants to take his ball and go home. Like, that's not the spirit of an athlete. Don't you want to fight for your job back? It seemed like the owner wanted to give him a chance at getting his job back by firing the head coach, obviously. And I think that's what Jeffrey Lurie meant to do, is kind of give him a new head coach to give him a new start, but he didn't want it anyway. I think it's like, how could you root for Carson Wentz at this point? Like, he doesn't get what he wants, so he wants to leave. And I think that the national media can say one thing, but, like, I mean, I don't blame Deshaun Watson. That's a terrible situation. It's just awful. And as much as the Eagles have lost the last year, we weren't a very well coached team. That team apparently has coddled him since the moment he came in there. They gave him every advantage. And yes, it sucks that you got to come into work every day and see a statue of the guy that replaced you and won the Super Bowl, and legends of his genitalia are still wandering throughout the city. But I mean, it just seems like he is a weak constitution. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, I wouldn't want him on my team. I wouldn't want him in my locker room.
Mainly that part. That last part.
Yeah, I mean, great talent, but who gives a damn when you're toxic, when you're choosing favorites, when your team doesn't believe in you, they don't trust in you to make the best decisions for the team to win, and everyone has to coddle you like you're a first round fucking point guard who's never it's really becoming so close to basketball culture, man. But for the other quarterbacks on the move, man, we got Goff for Matt Stafford. Does Matt Stafford finally unlock McVay's offense and get the neckbeard their first Super Bowl?
I mean, it's kind of his chance to prove to everyone that he was the good QB in a bad situation. Because I think a lot of people love this trade for the Rams. It's like, oh yeah, now Matt Stafford finally gets a chance to shine. But like, there's also a chance that he is just a slightly above average QB. He is Matt Ryan, but maybe that works because I think Goff was pretty limited, and I think Sean McVay's opinion on that. I think you could find a bunch of stuff everywhere, whether it's people trying to say that Troy Aikman was his source of speaking into the media or whatever ridiculous stuff that was. But it seemed like Sean McVay, his own head coach and an offensive genius, we can proclaim him, whether the rest of the people trying to emulate him are or not. But he's definitely a good offensive coach, and he wanted to bench Goff for some guy named John Wofford. Is that his name?
Sure.
Wofford. He wanted to bench him for him at the end of the year, and broken thumb is one thing, but we saw once he got in the game that he could have got it out. He still could have played. I think it's one of those things where his support system gave up on him, and if you got him in the building for 4 years and you still want to get rid of him, I don't have much faith in him either. So we'll see.
I think the Rams won that trade. The benefit for Detroit is the draft picks, and Jared Goff, he is what he is. So recently it came out that Russell Wilson's not happy.
I did see that. He did that previously because he wanted a new contract, but I wonder what the motivation behind it this time is.
I think it's the same. It's the similar motivation from the new contract, because I think he wanted a new contract, but he really wanted to leave, and he settled for the new contract. There's been talks that his wife Sierra is not a fan of living in Seattle.
Oh man,
it's bad for her celebrity. But also Russ has been sacked more than any other quarterback during his time in the league, and it's not close. So he said he just wants more protection. He's tired of getting beat up. And you've heard players come out and say, whether it's DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett, they don't like the way the offense is being called. You know, it's run, pass, run, pass, run, pass. But don't get me wrong, they unlocked Russ early in the year, and then he started throwing some interceptions, and Pete Carroll went back to what Pete Carroll knew and what's worked for Pete Carroll. But Pete Carroll, that has not won you a Super Bowl since 2014, 15, when you won your one. It's been a long time. So maybe the adjustment needs to be with their front office. Maybe they should, draft a lineman in the first round as opposed to Rashad Penny, who was not great as a first round running back and has not been a steal of the draft by any means. And
you're rooting for the San Diego State people. Like we got to root for him.
I used to play basketball with him. I was rooting for this guy. I was really happy for him. You know, so it's just one of those things, man. Like, do you appease the quarterback or do you let him go? I mean, Aaron Rodgers isn't happy now either.
Yeah, well, I think it's you're right. It is becoming like basketball in the fact that you don't know in this case, you do know that you already paid him, so it can't be the money. But there's a couple of motivations. It's either he wants more money, he wants to be shown that they believe in him, he wants more help, he wants another superstar. It's the trade for Paul George. That's the only way I'm going here, kind of equivalent. Or it's the I've been here so long, we haven't won anything, and this isn't a major city in terms of it's not Los Angeles, it's not Miami, it's not, I don't know. I mean, Seattle seems like a pretty thriving market, but I mean, it's
Russ
not
and Sierra don't seem like Seattle.
What's up?
Russ and Sierra do not seem like Seattle, though.
Well, yeah, I guess so. It's one of those things where there's a couple motivations, and this one seems maybe location based, absolutely, but also the fact that they haven't really been a true Super Bowl contender by the end of the year in a while. Like they've been one of those teams where it's like I could see them winning a playoff game or two, but like when's the last time they were a number 1 seed? I mean, back when the Legion of Boom was still around. So it's like maybe he's just frustrated that his team isn't very good anymore.
Yeah, I just hope they get it figured out. Do you think the Jets keep Darnold?
That's another place where it's like maybe a change of scenery would do him good. I kind of just want to see him in another team's colors, just to see if there's any ounce of actual talent in him. We've seen him make off-schedule plays. You saw that highlight against, I think it was it the Broncos? He juked the hell out of 2 people. Like He's definitely an athlete. But I haven't seen him play a primetime game where he showed up or beaten a good team. So you almost just want to get him out of there just to see if he can do anything on a real organization. How about you?
I don't know. And I think because there's a new regime coming that they could keep Darnold, move the number 2 pick, and get a fucking load back and really build up a roster around him. But my fear is that his confidence is so shot that he may not be the guy that he came into the league as.
Seeing ghosts.
Yeah, but again, Adam Gase was his coach. So, 2 years removed from Adam Gase, he could be he could be a Pro Bowl quarterback like my man Tannehill. So we got to see. What about Jimmy G?
I mean, I think that we kind of, I feel like a lot of it is that whole hindsight deal where it's like in the moment, he's pretty good. And then the moment he has a bad game, like this season, he wasn't very good. And then he was hurt. And I think people love to jump on the pile immediately. It's kind of similar to Goff in the way that like his head coach doesn't seem to be completely married to him. Like it doesn't seem like Shanahan is fighting to be like, no, this guy's really good. Like, no, he probably is fine. You hear him in the Niners and like Wentz trade rumors and Stafford trade rumors. Like I think Shanahan would sleep fine at night if they got rid of Jimmy G. But a lot of it's like I feel like the kid has talent. He's been hurt. He's been inconsistent this year, and I feel like those two things go hand in hand. I think he gets one more chance, right? I mean, they didn't unless they find another QB, unless they get Darnold. Maybe that's a spot for Darnold in the Bay.
Yeah, I think he deserves, even if it's not there, he deserves another chance. He's not been bad enough to not be to be benched forever or to become a career backup.
Speaking He's a one throw away, right?
Yeah. Super Bowl victory. Speaking of a quarterback who has been bad enough to be benched forever, is Cam Newton cooked?
I mean, if Bill Belichick can't make you look good, maybe he might be. I mean, did he take a year off? Was it an entire year off?
Damn near, yeah. This was his first year back. He had been hurt.
Yeah, I mean, that usually isn't good for a professional athlete. I think a lot of times once you take that year off, you're kind of, I mean, unless you're Rob Gronkowski apparently and eating a ton of CBD every day. I mean, it was just weird how inaccurate he was. Like if he was okay if he was throwing accurate passes and maybe he just didn't look as athletic, but like you said, it's throwing ground balls, or as my dad used to exclaim, the McNabb special. That could be wrong. That's just a memory I have. Hate me or love me. But he was throwing bounce passes all year, and you can't be that in a modern NFL offense.
Yeah, no, bounce passes are reserved for basketball. But you talk about the McNabb special, man, and we're gonna transition to recap in the 8 divisions, and we're going to start with your division, the NFC East. It was won by the Washington football team, who's a quarterback away. Maybe Jimmy G goes there. I don't know if you saw Dak followed and unfollowed the Redskins page because, he still hasn't got a contract yet. Or excuse me, the Washington football team's page, sorry.
Hey.
What are your thoughts on the NFC East this past season? Are there any major takeaways from the season or from any of the teams?
I mean, if the Washington football team had a real QB, they probably could have been a contender, right? I mean, if they get a QB this offseason, they could be good because obviously Rivera had them running all cylinders. People can't stop raving about Chase Young, even though he had 5 sacks or something like that.
Yeah,
no, I'm just hating. He's very good, but their defense played really good.
It was a very clowny season.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then someone will be like, "Oh, well, he's very good in the run game." Like that was always the excuse for Clowney.
Yeah, you don't get paid
but-
top dollar to be a run stopping DN.
Yeah, that's not that's not what they do with that position. I think that team shows a lot of promise. But then you got to remember who they're owned by, and then kind of lose some of that. But I mean, they were coached really well, and if they get a QB, you got McLaurin, you got Barber, running back. They have some sneaky good skill position players, and their defense, as they showed this season, was kind of nasty. I'm trying to think, did they come closer than Green Bay to beating Tampa Bay or no?
It was
kind of a close game towards the end there.
It was a close game. It was like a one possession game. I don't feel like looking to score up right now, but
so they played a good game against the eventual Super Bowl champs. So I'd say Redskins. Yeah,
I think the biggest thing from y'all's division is Dak. Does Dak get his contract? I mean, it's going on 2 years now. They've been doing this. Are you going to pay the man, or are you going to let him walk? Because I don't see how you field a competent team by having almost $38 million go against your cap for Dak Prescott.
Yeah, well, we're reaching free Dak territory almost, and obviously your boy Skip Bayless is probably really happy because obviously Dak over Wentz is clear now. I fought it for years, but I have to admit he's a better quarterback than Carson Wentz.
I don't know Skip Bayless, and I'm going to say nice things about Skip because he brought Shannon Sharp to TV, and I think that's very important.
That's fair. Carsville, man. I would say we definitely missed him this year. But I mean, the Cowboys, none of their QBs really showed out, so it's not like they should move on from him, should they? I mean,
I think if you go with Andy Dalton at his cap number, you can really put a contender out there.
Yeah, real exciting offense between him and Mike McCarthy.
Mike McCarthy get fired. He's not a good coach anymore.
He might be the new Jeff Fisher. You didn't hear that from me.
So speaking of McCarthy and his coaching, up to the NFC North, another interesting division, man, because as good as Green Bay was this past year, the Bears are a quarterback away from making this one of the toughest divisions in football because I think the Vikings will bounce back. Well, I think the Vikings could bounce back if they gave Shanahan Cousins because that's what he wants. But the Bears are Carson Wentz away from challenging,
I have a coworker, Mark Carmen, who's a diehard Chicago Bears fan and is very not in the same boat. He thinks they should trade Khalil Mack and everything else for Deshaun Watson. I mean, it's weird. The Vikings feel like they're talented every year. They feel like they have a lot of talent every year, but they don't always put it together. And then the one year they have Case Keenum, and they finally put it together. I mean, for the Packers, it's just, and again, this is hindsight, but they spent the first rounder on a QB instead of Justin Jefferson, right? Or was it that far back?
That's not hindsight, man. That was just a bad pick.
They could have moved up and selected a difference maker that could have helped them in that game, whether it's a defensive end, a pass rusher, a offensive skill player. But that's just the one thing from this division is the Packers could have had that X factor in the first round. There's a bunch of playmakers. They selected a backup QB who didn't play all year. Otherwise, I mean, we talked about the Lions, their interesting coaching staff. The Packers need that one more playmaker. And I don't think it's Allen Lazard. Don't quote me on it, but it might not be Allen Lazard.
So on to the NFC South, a division that is rich with quarterback talent, rich with disappointment, and I'm hoping that Jameis Winston is a starting quarterback in this division next season because Breeze got to go. Breeze is burnt out.
I mean, he's done, right? He's retiring. Is that official yet?
Yet.
Okay.
I mean, but Breeze was the reason that they could not beat Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I mean the rest of that team is built though. That's why it's disappointing. Like their defense is good. They have Alvin Kamara. They got Mike Thomas. Although I think he was propped up a little bit by Drew Brees. Although he was definitely playing through injury this year. I think he definitely was playing through something. I mean, did Taysom? I mean, Taysom Hill. What, he won like 5 straight games, didn't he? I know he's not the greatest traditional QB. Couldn't you have like a Lamar Jackson offense?
Didn't he lose to y'all?
He did lose to us, but that was after he won a bunch in a row though this year.
Yeah, he won like 3 or 4 games. Yeah, he was good. I just think if you run it back next year with Jameis and Taysom, because I think we forget that Jameis got LASIK.
Right.
And Jameis will not be in Bruce Arians' no risk it, no biscuit system. He's going to be a bit more closely coached in the way that they play and how they execute the offense. I really think that Jameis Winston can come back and be hell. Jameis might be the best quarterback in the NFC South next season.
Yeah, well, it's not Teddy Bridgewater. It's not anyone else on his roster. I mean, obviously, I think Taysom can be used to win games. He's not really
he's not a
QB per se. Yeah, he's not a QB. I mean, you're gonna forget about Brady that easily? Come on.
I say could be.
Oh, okay, all right.
And I still believe Brady's still 43. He might wake up and not be Brady next year. It can happen.
No, you're right. You're right. It just seems like every year we want that to happen, and it doesn't. But no, you're right. You're right. It could one of these years. I mean, I just think that like why not try to go full Lamar Jackson offense around Taysom Hill? I don't trust Jameis in a lot of capacities, but probably not as a QB at this point. I know Bruce Arians' offense definitely was a push it down the field and take all the risks, and he risked it away too much. But 30 picks doesn't wash out that easily. I can't do it.
But 30 plus touchdowns and 5,000 yards. There's something else there too.
True.
It's better than Drew Lock.
And now he can see better. Yeah, well, that's for sure.
So let's go to the NFC West, which is probably definitely the best division in the NFC, arguably the best division in the NFL. We've talked about the Rams and the steps that they've made to trying to be a winner. Super aggressive franchise. The 49ers, good team. We don't know what moves they're going to make, but we know John Lynch, new Hall of Famer. They're going to make a move this offseason because they're aggressive. We talked about the Seahawks and their inability to adapt to make Russ happy. But the team we haven't talked about is the Cardinals, and another team who made aggressive moves, moving off of Josh Rosen, firing Steve Wilkes after just 1 year, and bringing in Cliff Kingsbury, who may be fired after 3 years. Making the move for DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, giving up only a second and a running back that's expired. I mean, again, that's Houston. But can Arizona make the step next season to actually be a legitimate team in the NFC West and the NFC?
They had some troubling things happen the second half of the season. Obviously, they collapsed that second half. And without that Hail Mary against Buffalo, they would have been on a woeful losing streak. They were very good, and then they kind of tail spun, and because some things happened, and they're a little worrisome. So the head coach, like you said, maybe not so good. Maybe not such a good head coach.
He wasn't a good college head coach.
No, which is why it was weird he was hired. But I mean, I'm sure he's 38, so I'm sure that played into it.
It's a nice house.
Yeah, nice living room. He like you. He has nice ankles. But that's one thing, and then two, you got the nicest ankles in the East. He got the nicest ankles in the West. But so I'd say the other thing that's troubling is that we all talked about how Kyler Murray, he's making the short QB cool again. He's not too small. The game is new. But what happened the second half of the season?
Got dinged up a little.
Hey, Sean, your mic's muted. So, All right, so yeah, Sean's mic's muted. The AirPods probably died. So
Yeah,
back.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, cool. I would just say that like the whole Kyler Murray experience was cool until he got a little hurt. He's obviously a little smaller dude. He ran a lot this season, and as soon as he got a little dinged up, a little sore, injected a little more Toradol than he wanted to before games, it seemed like they kind of plummeted. So the two concerns are in the two worst spots you can have him at. Do you have a bad coach, and is your QB need to change his play style? So they're fun, and they were fun, especially in that Hail Mary game. But I mean, definitely troubling in two big areas.
Absolutely, man. I think that Kyler could be good, could be really good, but he has to run. He has to run less, and he has to have a good offensive line because he's so small. And they can force him to throw the ball outside the hashes because he's so small that he can't actually work in between the hashes. And then if you're forcing him to throw outside of the hashes, now you're playing towards that, so they become more predictable. He has a lot going against him, and he has the raw talent to overcome it. But again, it's football. It's 11 people on the field at once, and not having a superior offensive line. And going into most games with taking the L at the head coaching position, it does not set him up for success. But man, let's go back east to the AFC, the division that was once Bill Belichick's. All things come to an end, and maybe the Bills are back. Maybe they're going on another Jim Kelly-esque dynastic run.
Yeah, well, I mean, you gotta love Sean McDermott as the head coach. I've heard a bunch of stuff about how he takes feedback from everybody. He cares about what people think about him in that building.
Andy Reid,
Andy Reid coaching tree, former Eagles defensive coordinator, which we fired him after a ridiculous season. But that's just an example of you can't make a chicken salad with chicken shit. But I mean, Josh Allen. Can I just say that like I never thought he was going to be a good QB. Usually you don't get more accurate as you go in the NFL. Usually it's like those big QBs for where it's like, oh, he's 6'6" and he can throw it out of the building. Well, cool. Can he hit a target down the field on the move when pressure's in his face? Like I feel like the NFL Combine loves these big dudes with rocket arms, and he was one of them. And I remember a clip where he was throwing it like a net, like in practice, and he missed the net, and it's like, oh, like that's really bad. But he was killing it. I saw in most of those playoff games, he's really good, even in the Chiefs game. I mean, dude is talented. He's gotten so much better. But I think this division, you can't go anywhere without talking about what's going on with the Dolphins QB situation. What do you think they're going to do with Tua?
So I think Tua is the next Josh Rosen.
Wow. Okay.
I think that Tua is okay. I don't think he's great. I think he's good enough to be on the NFL roster and play NFL quarterback. I feel the same way about Josh Rosen, but once that first opportunity leaves you, it's so damn hard to get that second chance without having a real resume behind you. And I don't think Tua is going to get the chance to build that resume because he's going to end up fighting for a job in Houston after they finally make that trade, because that Patriots connection, Caserio to Brian Flores, is eventually going to prevail.
What I've heard on that, and this I might just be sipping the Trent Dilfer Kool-Aid, because obviously he worked with him, so he's not going to say anything bad about him. But he was under the impression that offense, and yeah, if you're an NFL quarterback, you should learn how to do things that aren't just the things you did in college, of course.
But most young NFL quarterbacks aren't doing that anymore. They're
right,
doing
but I guess his point, you're right. But his point was that in Alabama, he was one of the best 4 deep, like just kind of verticals passers in college football, where like you send people on 4 deep routes and he throws a seam or a deep out or like a deep go route. And he was really good at that. And they didn't do that much of that in Miami's offense. So maybe it's the fact that they didn't scheme to fit him, and that was an issue with the Dolphins' offense. They didn't kind of try to mold, like we've said, they tried to fit him to their offense and didn't try to fit their offense to him. But also, are we getting a little too fast on the? And yes, it worked with Josh Rosen because we think Kyler Murray is an NFL QB at least. But like, it was his rookie season. We can name a lot of rookie QBs that were terrible in their first season and got better the second year.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not saying I agree.
Obviously, you'd rather have Deshaun Watson, but
yes, I agree that we're getting too fast because we're not giving them time to mature, learn the game, like the NFL game at NFL speed. But the thing is, if my job is on the line, I can't afford to be here for your progression because
that team's ready now. And that team's ready now. You're right.
Exactly. So I heard the same stuff that Dilfer said. Like, I watched them, and after listening to what Dilfer said, I paid more attention. I go, okay, they're not doing what he does well, but is it because the scheme, or is it because the actual talent that they have there in house? I mean, look at his receiving core.
Yeah, what Mike Gesicki and Devontae Parker. I mean,
but look at what he had at Bama. Heisman
5
Trophy.
first-round picks.
Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, Eric Waddle, like Devontae Smith, like they were loaded. So yes, Tua is Drew Brees accurate, but Drew Brees wasn't Drew Brees until he got paired with Sean Payton. And Chan Gailey is not Sean Payton.
No, you're right. You're right. It's interesting though. Like off the top of my head, I mean, I just like would Patrick Mahomes be Patrick Mahomes if we didn't give him a year to sit? Like, there's a lot of interesting things. Like, obviously, people like Peyton Manning start day one, and a lot of QBs now start day one. But like, it does take a little bit of time, doesn't it? I feel like we've accelerated, especially with no off season. It was the COVID off season, right?
Patrick Mahomes is not Patrick Mahomes with any other team.
True. Any other head coach too. You're right.
Yeah. So I don't think that Tua. I think Tua should get another season. I think he should. But if he gets traded for Deshaun Watson, he's now going to be possibly competing with another top 5 pick, actually number 3 pick, for his job.
Yeah, and maybe that's good for him, and maybe that's bad for him. I mean, obviously, Brady was molded this way because he was in a constant QB competition in college. So, and I'm sure he was in the beginning of the Patriots' career too. So, like, it hardens diamonds sometimes. So you gotta hope it makes him better.
Yeah, somebody tell Carson Wentz that. And you know what? The Pats just aren't gonna
in the heart.
The Pats just aren't gonna get much love on this segment because they weren't good. They had a lot of opt-outs, and there's nothing definitive that you can say about them until you see what they're going to do at the quarterback position and if they're going to spend money this offseason, because they're one of the top teams in cap room this year.
Well, they're not going to spend money. They're going to get a bunch of mid-level veteran players, smart, savvy veterans like they always do. The QB position will be interesting, though, because they have an okay pick.
They've came out and said that they are going to spend more this offseason. It got leaked.
I mean, tell Bill Belichick that. That's all well and good. I won't believe it until they change their style. They're very much of the pick you off the scrap heap and turn gut diamond trash into gold type teams. But the QB position, obviously, it's you can do it once. You can pick the best QB of all time in the 6th round or whatever it is one time. But to do it twice, I think it's literally impossible. So it's interesting though. Like, what do you do at QB if you're them? Do you trade for? You can't trade for Stafford anymore. They were linked to him. Do you trade for Wentz? Do you trade for? I don't know who else is out there. Garoppolo? Do you look at Jimmy G again? He was okay with them.
I think Jimmy G is the best one because he knows the system already, and
Right.
I think you can find a better talent at quarterback. But how long is it going to take that quarterback to do it the New England way, because I think part of the reason why Cam Newton was skipping rocks instead of throwing dimes was because he was thinking entirely too much, because that is one of the most complex offenses in the NFL. And if you're out there thinking and you're not playing, you're not going to play as freely as you should. And because of that, some shortcomings you have in your game become amplified because you're thinking, and you're not just flowing.
Right. And I think obviously we all know their skill position players need work, because Bill Belichick got Matt Castle to 11 wins because he had Randy Moss and Wes Welker. So they can help a QB along. Just give him some skill.
Yeah. Keeping it up north, man. Let's talk about the AFC North. I think that the AFC North is the best division in football.
I mean, when does Joe Burrow come back?
He's supposed to be back for the opener.
Okay, so that would be the one thing. But yes, I love this division. I like watching games in this division. I was writing something today about Steelers Ravens, and like it's wild because that rivalry's only been around since like 1996, and I feel like it's one of the best, oldest rivalries in the NFL.
But it's two nasty teams playing against each other, though. Tough. Yeah. Physical, like that's such a tough, a grab your lunch pail division. Just look at the cities. You got Baltimore, where there's no reason for me to ever go to Baltimore. You got
at the aquarium. You don't want to go see the fish?
I've been there once. I don't need to go back. You got Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Another blue collar, tough city. You don't
want to go to Pittsburgh.
You got Cleveland. It's in fucking Ohio. You got Cincy. Again, it's in fucking Ohio. Like, it's just, there's no glitz and glam to any of these cities, and those teams really embody those cities. And it's just good, hard football. And seeing Cleveland actually be good was great. Seeing Baltimore come back and be good again, they were good the year before, but getting away from Flacco, coming back to what they were. Having Pittsburgh be good again on defense, because what we forget about in the years of the Killer Bees, Pittsburgh was, let's throw it around the yard. And they had lost that defense of what Pittsburgh was, but won them championships. Yeah. And now seeing that again, it's beautiful. And hey, look here, Zach Taylor, you're on the clock, buddy, because Eric Bieniemy, what's my man's name up in Buffalo, the OC?
Oh, Brian Daboll.
Daboll. These guys are going to be looking for jobs again.
Yeah. But there's like, and you said it right. It's just the way football is meant to be played, like hard and fast. And then you got good organizations. I mean, at least two good organizations. You got the Ravens and the Steelers, who seem to always find good players. They're great at drafting players. Honestly, like they're two master classes in terms of drafting Hall of Fame talent, and not having to rely on free agency, which I think a lot of the NFL has. But then also just like good people, like people you want to root for. I mean, Kevin Stefanski. First off, he's from Philly, but also
we lost you again. So we lost his.
No, there we go.
Okay.
Kevin Stefanski from Philly. Took a terrible organization back to promise. Mike Tomlin. It's hard not to love anything that comes out of Mike Tomlin's mouth. Lamar Jackson. I mean, I want that dude to win an AFC title so badly. I just like whether it's good football or good people, I feel like the AFC North is a fun division.
Absolutely, man. I love the division. I've followed that division more than any other division besides my own this year.
Yeah.
Now down to probably the worst division in football. The dumpster fire that is the AFC South.
Yeah, I mean, I think the NFC East is probably worse than the AFC South. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean,
here's the thing about the NFC East.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all are solid. You just don't have the good. They have the one good team every year, but their bad's just so damn bad. Like what the Houston Texans organization is just god awful.
I mean, yeah, Jaguars. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, no, you're right.
And
hit the floor.
The big thing going into this division this year is Does Carson and Frank reunite? Like, it's the goddamn Carson Wentz podcast today. Does Carson and Frank reunite? And
he doesn't deserve it. But yeah, I mean, Frank Reich is a good coach. We know he's a good coach. If you can get that much out of Phillip Rivers, who obviously is still he retired, but like he was washed for a couple of years, and they got the best year out of him he's had in a while. So like Reich is a good coach on the Colts. Their defense is good. That team can be good. What's up?
Chris Ballard's a good GM. Like he's drafted.
Yeah. I heard a rumor about the Eagles like being like screw draft picks. Let's just trade Carson Wentz for Darius Leonard straight up. And I was like, I'm in. That dude is a monster. But what was he, a 4th-round pick or something? He was a late-round pick. Excellent draft pick.
Out of HBCU. Like, he was –
nice.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like he was – based on projections, he wasn't supposed to be where he's at because he was supposed – someone that good should have came out of Ohio State, USC, or Alabama.
Right. I'm sure he, like, tripped on his 40, and they were like, oh, he ran a slow 40. We don't watch the tape. Just – some of that stuff is ridiculous.
Combine is ridiculous, and I think this year is going to show with us not having a traditional combine that the combine is just a reason for everyone to get together, get wasted, tell stories, and give the media the most material they get all year.
Underwear Olympics. Gotta hate it. I mean, Tennessee, it'll be interesting to see if this is their ceiling, just going around the AFC South. Like, was last year, not even this year, like was the last year's run the best it's going to get? Like, is that Tannehill's ceiling? And now I know their defense, especially on 3rd down, they had like the worst 3rd down defense in the league, I'm pretty sure. So, I mean, they need people better than Clowney, bringing him up again. It's the Clowney and Carson Wentz podcast.
Well, you know, I think they've lost the brains of their offensive operation, so we'll see.
Right. Yeah, you better hope they have. What? And then you got the Texans. I mean, we don't need to talk about their dumpster fire anymore. Yeah, I'll turn on Jaguars game this year. I'll give them a shot.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer. Because, hey, the Jaguars are going to be good in about 3 years. I think that Urban can pull a Pete Carroll because he's been recruiting. He knows these kids. He knows what they're made of. And even the kids that he couldn't get.
It's the Florida area. You're right. SEC country.
He's going to be able to draft them. And, yeah, he's down there in the South, baby. AFC West. Patrick Mahomes is obviously mortal. We saw that this past weekend.
Still made some throws. I mean, even in a loss, still made some inhuman plays. But yeah, he's human. Yeah.
Does my man Justin Herbert challenge him for that division, or does Chucky?
It depends on coaching, because the Chargers lost like 3 or 4 games in a row when they were up by like double digits or something. Like I feel like Anthony Lynn doesn't. What's up?
The Falcons West.
Basically, yeah, and I think if they have a coach who can manage the clock better than Anthony Lynn did, and manage the game plan a little better in terms of like trying to win and instead of trying to not lose, absolutely. And I feel like they get who's their defensive? Who's the safety that was out all last year?
Derwin James.
Yeah, you get Derwin James back. I know he's perpetually hurt, so you can't really rely on him to stay healthy. But like, you got Keenan Allen as always. I mean, there's the talent to be good on that team for sure. You got the pass rush.
You know, we're Chargers guys.
Yeah, I think at heart. I think at heart they're my second team, right?
Yeah, they are. Like I've always kept an eye on them. I mean, they lose the same way my Falcons lose. We lived in the city. You actually worked for them for a little while. You know,
they paid my bills for a little bit.
Yeah, man. I love San Diego. I love San Diego sports. And one of my biggest beefs with Donald Sterling is that he ripped the Clippers from that great city that deserves to have 3 sports teams.
I mean, I don't know if they'd be able to fill up a stadium, but that's a whole nother conversation.
That's not, you know how cheap tickets we could have gotten and probably walked our way down to courtside for games against, I don't know, teams no one wanted to see?
That's true. Go see the Kings. Yeah.
Or just imagine us being able to go to basketball games during our time in San Diego.
That weren't Globetrotter games. That would have been fantastic.
Yeah, like I wasn't going to that shit or going all the way to LA to pay Lakers prices.
No, always Clippers prices.
Yeah, but anyways, back to that division. Do you think Oakland gets over the hump, or is John Gruden an average coach?
I'm rooting for John Gruden. I don't know if it was Hard Knocks or just how charismatic that dude is, but like I want that dude to win. I think their ceiling is their QB though, because I think they showed that they put together somewhat of a program. They've gotten a little better each year he's been there. Max with 2 X's Williams has been good off the edge. That's a good find. Seriously, he has 2 X's in his name. I don't know if that was.
It was just funny as hell that you said that.
I just it's a weird thing. I think you think someone's parents would have had some self-awareness, but that's neither here nor there. But so I think they've gotten a little better. We killed them for that Khalil Mack trade, but it looks like I don't know who they got for it, but like it seems like they got that running back for him, didn't they?
Jacobs, yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't light the world on fire last year, but he's been an above average running back. So I think it's their QB. Like, can Derek Carr get better, or will they move him for somebody? Right?
I think they should look. It's quarterbacks are moving all around. We see what Derek Carr is, man. He's a little bit better than Kirk Cousins. He's just not going to make the big play when we need it. He doesn't want to let it loose. He let it loose a little bit more this year.
A little bit.
He did let it loose a little bit more, but I just don't think when you look at that division, man. He's the 3rd best quarterback in the division, and Drew's about to get locked up anyways. And I mean by locked up as in he's going to be done. And if Denver upgrades the quarterback position, you don't want to have the worst quarterback in the division. Quick thing on Denver, I'm happy that John Elway is no longer running the football things. He's finally found a GM. I just don't think that John Elway – with all his various interests, with his ego, with his career as a successful NFL player, and also his success early on with all he had to do was tell Peyton to come to Denver. I don't think that he was putting in the right amount of time necessary to be a GM. I just don't like celebrity GM hires personally.
Yeah, that's a fair point. It's like the Magic Johnson effect. Like he just is never in the actual office. That's interesting. I mean, it's weird. It's always his thing for tall quarterbacks will never not be weird. But also the fact that he's a QB and he was really good at signing defensive players. He was good at assembling defensive talent, which is just strange because he played QB and he wouldn't know a good QB if it bit him in the face.
If you think about it, though, that's what he played against. That's what he used to see. He probably looked at it. This is what
who I not want to play against.
Yeah, exactly. As opposed to quarterback, he drafted Paxton Lynch. Okay.
I think that's done. I think we killed that division.
Yeah. So let's get to like the fun part of the show. I mean, 2 hours in.
Yeah. Right.
Let's get to the most overrated fan bases. So I came up with a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
I got 3. I'll touch on. I'll chime in every once in a while.
Okay, so they're in no order. Number 1 is Michigan football. University of Michigan football. Sorry, Naj, but they carry themselves like they're a blue blood program. But you won your championships in leather helmets. Let's be honest. They won their championships in leather helmets. And their last championship was what, late 90s?
Hey. All I hear about is Bo Schembechler when we talk about Michigan, and he stopped coaching before I was born.
97 was their last championship. Sorry, I don't care about Bo Schembechler. Claimed national titles from 1948 to 1997.
Mm-hmm.
50 years in between. You're not cream of the crop. You're not Ohio State. Be Michigan. Hang your hat on being a better school with a better education. So stop putting all this pressure on Harbaugh to not win these damn championships. Hey, you're a 9-win program. He has you at 9 wins. Accept it. All right.
Yeah.
To
Fair
keep it in college football,
Okay.
Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
I mean, yeah, the most pretentious program in college football, right?
Absolutely. And yes, they're competitive. Yes, they get to the playoffs. They got there this past year. They got there in 2018. But their last national title was in 1988. We
Yeah.
weren't
I don't like, and I know you don't like this either. It's like the Cowboys effect, where they always get a primetime TV slot every week. They're what is it, NBC? They're always on NBC, even no matter how terrible they are. They could be 0-7. They're going to be on NBC
because they got the contract with them, and they have a national fan base because it's a great school. So,
well, also I think that people who are either Irish or Irish Catholic or just Catholic identify with them for some reason because of their mascot, which is a ridiculous reason to identify with someone. But I mean, whatever.
All right, so my next college football team,
Okay.
Texas Longhorns.
Okay. I mean, ever since Vince Young left, I agree with you.
And they competed well with Colt McCoy. But again, they went from 1970 to 2005 without winning a national championship. And now it's 2021. Guess what? You're not Oklahoma. You're a really good program. You're just like Michigan. You're an 8-9 win program that offers a great education. And from everything I've heard, Austin, Texas is a great city. Shout out to Dirty Six. And just be that. And I'm not saying you should not strive to want more, but you should not walk around like you're some elite program. You should not just be cycling through coaches when they're having you at where you should be. Like they have their boosters invest the most into that program, but you're not the NFL pipeline that Alabama is. You're not Clemson. You're not them.
Yeah, I think, and you know this, and it's funny you shout out Austin, Texas, because I have heard that's a great place to go. But I mean, the stakes are higher because it's Texas. The stakes are higher because your mascot's the Longhorns, and that's the most Texas thing I can ever think of. I think it's like that whole expectation that Texas does football bigger. Texas football is life, but it's like, I mean, wins are football, not your expectations.
Exactly. So no more college football teams. On to college basketball. Syracuse.
Okay. That's a pretty good one. I mean, what their last title was what? Melo?
Yeah, that's Boeheim's only title.
Okay.
Like I know Boeheim gets to coach alongside Coach K for the Olympics and stuff, but you're not Duke. You're not UNC. You're not Kentucky.
How about the hilarity of a guy who made his bread and butter on a defense that's so solvable that NBA teams don't run it because it's so easy to break. I just think it's hilarious that, like, I mean, he literally sends guys to the NBA and it's like, oh yeah, he doesn't even know how to play defense because he played some gimmick in college. I think that's kind of funny.
Yeah, they play a extended 2-3 zone. Hey, put somebody in the middle, have somebody run baseline. Your zone's shredded. Or who's their best?
Who's their best? Did Myers Leonard go there, or is it? It's either him or like Michael Carter Williams, other than after Melo.
Yeah, I don't even care to look up who went to Syracuse. No, man, chopped cheese, baby. Deion Waiters Island.
Oh God, Philly cheese. Sorry,
champ cheese, baby. Okay, so also in college basketball, Michigan State.
Ooh, okay.
Y'all are the darlings of the Final Four, but you only got one ring. That was 2000.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. That's
exactly. Sorry. Love you, Tom Izzo. I think you're a great coach. Your relationship with Nick Saban and your love for football is really dope. But hey, Michigan State fans, y'all are not blue blood. Stop acting like it. And again,
No, it's funny though because at least they do have a likable. Everyone does seem to like Tom Izzo. Like
yes.
that dude does seem to be likable at least.
So my last college basketball team, I'm actually taking. This was yours. It's the damn Hoosiers.
Nice.
You had the Bob Knight era,
Yeah.
and now you get an occasional Victor Oladipo, man. Yeah, I know we can talk about the tradition and history of college basketball and the fucking checkered or the pinstripe pants or whatever, the little peppermint pants that they wear. Like, I got it, but no, Indiana, you're not Duke, you're not UNC, hell, you're not Kansas, you're just not. You had your run, you had your Bobby Knight era, and it's over. And again, This is not an actual attack on the teams themselves. It's more so the fan bases who walk around nationally because they're national fan bases, and they just act like they're hot shit. It's like, bro, what have you done for me lately? And speaking of which, the one NBA team, the Boston Celtics.
Easily hateable fan base. Absolutely. We could start with their I think it's more out in the open now, but we could start with the fact that they've been identified as the most racist fan base. Is that fair?
Like, it's crazy. Bill Russell didn't go back to have his jersey retired. Like, how does your most decorated player not want to come back to your city? That's just how bad it is there. So, not to mention that Boston fans are extremely obnoxious, and they got the Pats, and then they got the Bruins, and they got the Red Sox, who have been extremely successful during my lifetime. The one team that they try to hang their hat on haven't. They put together the team in 2008 that was a heist. I mean, let's be honest now. We got one of your best players of all time trading you Kevin Garnett, someone who's going to get his jersey retired there for nothing. Like, let's be real.
And can we also be honest in the fact that they won one title in 2008, and we talk about that title so much because of all those, whether it's Perkins or Rondo or KG or Ray Allen, so many of those guys or Paul Pierce are in the spotlight so much that we talk about that 2008 title like they won a three-peat. I feel like that title multiplies.
And they carry themselves like they won a three-peat, like the way they can talk down to LeBron or how they can talk like eye to Kobe. It's like, well, y'all did beat Kobe once, but Kobe won 2 on y'all's clock. Y'all didn't get you win in 08, you didn't make it in 09, you didn't go in 10, you didn't go 11, you didn't go in 12. Y'all tried to put this team together again in Brooklyn. It didn't work. And then hold on. We hired Brad Stevens, the boy wonder, the best coach in the league. No, bro, you're Harbaugh. You're a good coach. Great out of bounds plays, but guess what? You're not a champion. And I don't care what anybody says. You can be a hell of a coach, but if you have not crossed that threshold of the champion, that's a problem. You had prime Kyrie and a budding Jason Tatum. You couldn't get them two to get along. Look at what Jaylen Brown has become. You couldn't get them to get along. And that's part of coaching. And oh my God, don't let me hear about Danny Ainge being a great GM ever again. Like, is Danny Ainge a good GM? Sure. But what was our first episode? Didn't I say fuck Danny Ainge?
I think you did. Yeah.
Why? Because Danny Ainge hoards draft picks, but he's not hoarding rings.
Well, I think this is the time where we can revisit the Colin Sexton trade, which is probably the biggest recent blemish on his resume. We love the whole, obviously Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, great heist to Brooklyn and whatnot. But he traded away that pick for Kyrie, did he not? And he could have Colin Sexton as well. So it's like, and obviously you do the Kyrie trade over if you had, it looked good in the moment, but in the long run, terrible trade.
But do you actually do that trade in the moment?
I mean, we know too much now. We know too much about Kyrie now, I feel like.
Fair. That's fair. Okay, so the last two, both pro football teams.
Okay.
I'm going to go with The Raiders.
So I love because I had this on my list too. So I'll let you go.
So as someone who's lived in California pretty much since 2015, there are Raiders fans everywhere. Whether it's the Oakland Raiders fans, whether it's the LA Raiders fans. But guess what? Y'all come out in droves, but y'all aren't that good. Like, you had your couple of Gruden years, you know. Bill Callahan took y'all to the Super Bowl, but that was Gruden's team running Gruden's scheme.
Shout out Chris Jones.
Del Rio had one good year there with Derek Carr, but the Raiders, you are like a bottom of the barrel franchise. You haven't won baby in forever. This is not the days of Howie Long and Art Shell anymore. You're just not that team. And it's okay that you were that way back in the day. Like way back in the day. You know, before people like Sean and I were alive. It's okay that you were that, but you're not that anymore. And you don't get to carry yourself like that. Like, if you like Steelers fans, right? They have history and they have recent success in their history, right? So when you're a Steelers fan, you can say, yeah, we got this many titles, huh? Because you lived through some of that. But if you're not living through your team's successes, shut the fuck up.
All right, so I'm about to. I might go off because this one was ridiculous. Raiders fans, your franchise left and you still buy the merch because of some NWA video from 30 years ago. Raiders fans aren't football fans. They're hip hop or fashion fans. They like them because the uniform and the logo look cool. Chargers fans did it right. When the team left, they're like, all right, the owner left. We're not going to buy this billionaire's merchandise and give him more money, even though he left us high and dry. Most Raiders fans might not even know where their team is at this point, where they're located. I feel like it's more of a fashion statement as opposed to an actual football fan. It's weird that the team left and then left again, and that they're not still in where we were at, Southern California. They're not even Northern California anymore. It's weird that they still have fans. I don't know about you, but if the Falcons or the Eagles left Atlanta or Philly, I wouldn't be fans anymore. You abandoned me. I just don't understand it.
And think about this with the Raiders fans. The reason why they left to Vegas is because they didn't go to the game. You want to go to the bar in your Raiders jersey.
Yeah.
But not actually going to the game and packing out your stadium so your team can stay.
You want to swag out in your black hat, cool, but like that's not football fandom to me.
And last, and certainly not least,
okay,
so obvious.
Oh yeah, well,
who it is. Cowboys fans.
How about them?
Great history, great run in the 90s. Nice jerseys. By far, my favorite owner in pro sport. Jerry Jones. Give me a Jerry Jones interview. Give me a Jerry Jones presser. I can watch Jerry Jones clips all day because he's entertaining. He's a showman. He's a salesman. Like, he's great at marketing the product, marketing the team. He gets his players paid on and off the field, and he gives them great opportunities after. But Cowboys fans, y'all have been average to below average for most of my life. After Jimmy left, for you modern day Cowboys fans, Jimmy should be who you love because Jimmy is what built what gave you this. I can stick my chest out. Yeah, we won in '95, bro. You were 3. Who gives a shit? You weren't celebrating that shit.
You were 3.
That's like me celebrating the Braves winning the '95 World Series. Yes, we won it, but do I remember it? No.
Nope.
I wasn't even living in Georgia yet.
Yeah, it's weird. I wonder why people picked them as America. Like, was America's team, was that Tom Landry? Was that because he wore a fedora? Like, I'm just.
I think that was a Tom Landry thing, and then it just stuck. But I thought Americans were winners.
Yeah, it's just a gross. Maybe it's currently America's team because I guess it fits the current America pretty well. But like, it's just such a nauseating fan base. And let me just say, there's a lot of Cowboys fans in Philly, and some of them are knowledgeable. Some of them are. I've met some knowledgeable people that aren't jackasses. But then you meet idiots, and you meet people like Skip Bayless, who just like, I feel like I feel like just don't let it go. And the fact that like you have to have some self-awareness. Your team hasn't been good. We mentioned it a little earlier. Jerry Jones did very, very good off the top. He bought the team. He won immediately. But
Hired Jimmy.
what's up?
He hired Jimmy.
Yeah, but even that trade, didn't he trade Herschel Walker for like 90,000 picks?
Jimmy.
Right. So but that was immediate. But since then he hired what? Mike McCarthy? Like you can't hire Jimmy again. He's already in the Hall of Fame. I just like he did good in the beginning. And we have to acknowledge that it's been a while since the beginning.
Yeah. So what other do you have on your list?
I had the Raiders and I have two others. I would just like to say that Seattle Seahawks fans, I don't know if you have an idea on this one.
Oh, God. 12th man.
I think they're overrated. I think the 12th man thing is a little ridiculous. I think just because you have your own flag, I never heard of the Seahawks fans until Richard Sherman existed, and then all of a sudden, they creep out of the woodwork. I think that people need to acknowledge that they're not great fans. They just have a great engineer who built their stadium. You're not loud fans. Your stadium is just a work of modern science. Have you ever seen the way that stadium is built? It takes the sound from the fans and it goes up to the top of the stadium. And then the way it's built, it shoots it back down to the middle. So the reason the stadium is so loud is because it basically is built to funnel sound at the players. So I think that we should give credit to the stadium builder as opposed to these 12th man fans. They get all this credit for being so damn loud.
They should have done like we did in Atlanta, just pump in more noise.
Yeah, well, that's going to be something after this year. And then I would just say this isn't a shot at a specific fan base. We should just call this the hater hour because that's basically what we're doing right now. I would say acting like Philly fans are the only violent fans. Can we say that that's been ridiculous over the last? Like, yes, we do ridiculous things. Yes, we've earned a little bit of our moniker, but like I feel like a couple of years ago, like a Dodger fan like stabbed somebody or like something like that, and no one talks about it. No one brings it up ever again. And I feel like every time we like fight Mike Scott, we get blown up. Like
the problem is don't y'all have like a police precinct in the link?
Well, that was in the vet. That was the old stadium. There was a courtroom in our old football stadium.
And so because y'all had that at the vet, I think that's just why. But I mean, Raiders fans are fucking awful.
Right. But that's almost like the Tom Brady thing where like they kind of twisted it to be cool, right? Or badass, as opposed to we're just lunatics.
And you know what? You want to know who else I can just toss in here?
Yeah, sure.
The Pats fans that turn Tampa Bay fans. Don't get to be that damn successful for 20 years and then say, oh, no, I wasn't a Patriots fan. I was a Brady fan. No way in hell you were a Brady fan because Brady was a nobody when you got it. You were a Patriots fan that ended up liking Tom Brady because of what he did for your team.
Yeah, he's going to go back and live in Southern California when his career is over. I hate to break it to him.
Yeah, he doesn't love Tampa. He doesn't love New England. He actually hates the cold, apparently. But hey, man, it was fun to catch up with you. Got anything else?
No, I mean, I think we got everything out in 2 hours and 15 minutes. That was legit, though, man. Yeah,
man, it was so good to do this again. I really enjoyed it. And hey, Sean, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Hey, thank you.
All right, man.